everybody. It is Ask an Agent Anything. And man, does it start with a deep sigh, but also like one of just like contentment. You know, when you sit down with like your favorite person and you're like, oh, thank goodness, let's just have a cup of coffee. Let's take a moment because we at least have each other. That's how I feel. I missed you, Renee.
I missed you, my love. I know last week it was just upside down and backwards, but this is the beauty of getting going on something like this. So we're back and we're live, and that's the important part. And you, my friend, are back from Squat Up Summit, which you can tell the audience what that is. Not everybody's going to know what that is. I was not there. I was holding down the fort, but man, I am excited. So take it away, lady. Let's hear what you got to say.
Well, first off, guys, if this is your first time joining us, this is Ask an Agent Anything. Once a week on Tuesdays at 2 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, I sit down with Renee, and honestly, I tell everybody this, but it's true. I would be doing this anyway. I would be hunting down Renee for at least an hour of her time every week because one, she's one of the people that fills me up, but two, she's been in this business for 18 and a half years. You know this thing inside, outside, upside down. You've been there, you've done that. And I've only been in the business for about 5 years. So I'm always here asking you just about anything, quite literally. Like we go into mindset, we go into business, we go into KPIs, you name it. It's fair game here. And that's one of the reasons why we do it live is because we want other people to get in on that action. This is like fireside chat mode. You guys can drop your questions, whether they're on the topic we're talking about or whether they're just burning in your soul. We want you guys here having those conversations with us. So,
yeah,
man,
fun. Let me put my
welcome.
glasses on.
If this is your first time, this is Ask an Agent Anything.
And I want to say too that the purpose of this is that, yes, Corianne and I are both agents. We have different experience levels, as she just shared. And, the longevity of what this is to bring the conversation, not only for the individual and the agent, because we're obviously human beings and we're very well-rounded. And this business is a mindset business. Yes, you make money, you sell houses, you sell properties, whatever exit strategy we're doing. I assert that it is really, I jokingly said from the beginning, it's the most non-denominational faith-based business you'll ever be in. Because sometimes all you can do is get on your knees and say, please, God, please make this deal go through. So help me. How do I even get past this, right? I mean, I don't even know how I look as young as I am because I've really just kissed a lot of frogs in this business and I've seen a lot of stuff and I've put up with a lot of stuff. And after a while, you just don't, you find your people and you create your boundaries. So all this to say, we both work with a lot of investors and we've invested ourselves. And so we want to bring this conversation to have the oil and water meld to make a beautiful dressing because the investors don't always like talking to the agents. The agents definitely don't always like talking to the investors. And so, let's just change that conversation. So one step at a time. We're going to be here every single week, like Corianne said, but we'd love to hear, the feedback from the audience at large so that we make sure we're covering all the grounds. Back to you, Florida. Let's talk.
Yeah. So just, if anybody hasn't heard what Squat Up Summit is, Pace Morby and Jamil Damji, two amazing investors honestly, how do I even begin to describe them? But they got their heads together and they put on one of the best investment events I have ever been to. And I've been to a lot of them. I could list a lot of them, but I honestly don't want to throw any of those under the bus because every single one of them is unique. But there was a different energy at Squat Up Summit it was collaborative. There was a desire to come in with an intention and find your people and find the missing piece that you need in your business. And I thought that was like really beautiful. There not only was the business and the learning happening in the summit, in the learning that you could get from some really incredible speakers. But honestly, what I found so fascinating and so interesting is nobody was really trying to outperform or outshine each other in the hallway. And there was nobody who was like, I'm the big dog. I'm the tough shit. You got to know me, the kind of attitude.
Yeah.
It was very collaborative in like, what's your market? What's your angle? How do you work? What's your missing piece? And if you just showed up not expecting that and not coming with intention, I could see that being incredibly overwhelming because really everybody was there to serve on a completely different level. I knew a little bit of what I'd be getting into since I know these communities well, and I came prepared with the Blink card. If you'd never been to one of
Mm.
these events and you didn't come with the Blink card, it was stressful. But if you knew to come with your Blink card, then you're all set. And guys, if you don't have one, I highly suggest it. It's just a Blink app. And if you go to and it's BLINQ,
Mm-hmm.
and you build out a business card, you can just walk up to somebody and be like, scan my QR code. And then it downloads all of the information about them and how you can connect with them and what value they have and basically their hashtags, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it was really fun. It was, I mean, I was kind of playing with intention in a lot of ways. Like, one of the big ones that I had was I was asking a lot of questions about how I fit and how I slot into real estate. And I know one of those things is in this coaching mentor standpoint. So I was out there just being like, bring me some coaches, like bring me some energy and some people that are out there coaching real estate so that I can get to know them better.
Mm.
I'm walking out day one. This beautiful gal, her name's Bernie, grabs my elbow and she goes, hey, you scream as loud as I do. Because I was really hooping and hollering. I mean, Jamil gets on stage and I was like, Jamil! And even now, I feel like I lost my voice doing that, but it was worth it because I'm definitely a Jamil junkie. Absolutely love the man. And she grabs my elbow. She's like, you're just as loud as I am. And I sense that energy. I absolutely love it. Let's exchange Blink cards. And we're getting shuffled out like cattle. Like everybody's got to go to the bathroom. And we exchange Blink cards really quick. Easy peasy. Didn't talk to her the rest of the event. Got back with some really important things on my heart as to how I wanted to adjust my business, how I wanted to plan. And I just connected with her. I was just like, hey, here's the top 3 things that I want to focus on. Here's some things that I walked away from that event on. How was my fellow whooper basically leaving this event? And how's your voice? Because I sounded terrible 2 days ago. And she was like, stop it. You're moving more towards a coaching space. I coach coaches.
What? See,
She
that's
was like,
the
I
universe
help
at
people.
work. Yeah.
It is. And that was what this room was. It was like the universe at work, especially for anybody that was coming in with intention. I think like you and I talk about that a lot, how
Yeah.
important intention can be to make sure that you're actually getting what you need out of something.
Mm-hmm.
And if you were coming with that, and I know a lot of people did, you were finding it. It was in that room. Private money lenders, unicorn agents out the wazoo. Like you and I are not alone in that world.
Oh,
There
good.
were
Did you
so
say
many.
about this? Did you talk about this?
I
Ask the
did. I
attention.
told a few people
Yeah.
about it. But more so it's on my Blink card. I'm telling people to come follow me on YouTube. And right now, Ask an Agent Anything is the thing that's holding down my YouTube. Thank goodness.
I love, right. Well, yeah, we all have to start somewhere.
Right.
My gosh, you are so adorable. You are so excitable right now. Let me share a few things that I'm hearing though. So, we can kind of break it up a little bit, right? But I've been to, oh my God, girl, I have spent the GNP of a small nation on coaching in my life. I am not kidding. I don't know how much I've spent. For sure, deep into the 6 figures. I mean, it's 18 years, plus I've done a lot of different types of coaching, not just real estate coaching, right? Certain life coaching, money coaching, other things like that. So just been on the planet a minute longer. That's all. I don't know anything more than you necessarily, just been on the planet a minute longer. But what I heard you saying that was so interesting for the audience that doesn't know Pace Morby and Jamil Damji, Corianne and I actually are astro flipping students. So we are in it for the community. And the quick story about Jamil and Pace is that Pace was a wholesaler about 3 or 5 years ago, not that long ago. And he was just doing wholesaling. He's not a licensed agent. And Jamil was one of his buyers, if you will. He was buying these homes. And I think Pace was like Jamil's number 1 person at that point. He just sent all of his deals to Jamil. So they did like 100 transactions together. And then they obviously got talking and became friends, et cetera. And now they are best friends, even though they're somewhat competitors to a degree because they both have coaching programs, a different style on the coaching programs, but nonetheless, we are an attention economy. And so we're always vying for people's attention, thus, where are they going to put their dollars? So that's the story of how I think those two got the quick story of how those two got together. And then you saying that the hallways or maybe the rooms, I know when you're in the room, you're more or less listening. It's a little passive, right? On most events that you go to, unless you're sharing. But when you're in the hallway, you are really doing the business. That's where a lot of the business is done. And the fact that you said it's collaborative, these things start from the top down. So Pace's message has been very consistent. Jamil's message is consistent about collaboration over competition. And that's, I think, in a spiritual context, in a universal context, a lot of where things are going. You know, like that whole, I grew up Gen Xer, I grew up more in the 80s and 90s. It was still leftover. It was still Reaganomics. It was still very much the me. They called it the me generation, I think was what it was. Stupid, like the whole yuppie thing. And that was really like, get yours at the cost of anything. Step on a neck, get yours. And I grew up with that, you know, and that's not my personality, but it's been very interesting, the messaging and how it shifted. So that stuck out to me, that you really were in those hallways and it was a collaborative energy, because in an industry that is not notorious for being collaborative, or, you know, if you are doing something with someone, a lot of times, you know, the people's egos get the best of them. They become greedy and they do a money grab, and that's not very collaborative. So that was really interesting. You said that. I just wanted to note that I don't have a fear of missing out. My commitment was not to go to the event this year. I'll probably go next year. But you know, that the fact that was one of your biggest takeaways, I mean, that says a lot about the industry. And it also says a lot about who the two of them are, that was the tone in essence that they set for this entire event. So
I'm glad you reeled back my enthusiasm and let me take a breath, because it's been a crazy day. So some of that energy is just right into here, and that's totally fine.
We're live on the court. I mean, come on. Yeah.
So thank you for you know, just a moment to kind of set the stage for what that is, because they are industry changers in that alone. Like there's a bunch of other things we could talk about that they're working towards changing the industry on, and like I'm not going to steal their thunder. I'll let them talk about that. But I can say, as somebody who looks up to them both, they're industry changers in just how they work together. And by seeing that on stage, by seeing that in their businesses, it encourages everybody in the crowd to do that. And there was 2,000 people in the crowd.
Wow. That's a lot from the mastermind. The masterminds were what, like 40 people?
Yeah, 40 people, if that. Like it was really a small group if you were at something like the mastermind, which means that you weren't always guaranteed that you were going to have somebody working in your market or that was going to fill whatever gap you needed. I met a lot of private money lenders. I met a lot of unicorn agents. I met a lot of wholesalers and sub-2 people, but really it was an opportunity, I think, to delve into how can you be more creative as you approach a seller or a buyer or a need in general. And you and I talk about that a lot, because you know, one of the reasons we want to create this bridge between the investor and the agent is because ultimately it's the people that don't understand real estate that deserve our time, attention, and options.
You know what one of my emails is? I'll say it out loud. Don't everybody email me at one time. One of my emails is freedom, options, choices. That's one of the whole reasons why we're doing this. Freedom, options, and choices. So that is the exit strategy. I mean, you know, you want to have income and blah, 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 and all those things, right? That's the logistics of it all. But the why of it, I believe, is that, right? Time freedom. That's a big thing. Your generation talks about that a lot. Time freedom. I mean, my God, if I was your age now, I don't know where I'd be at my age now, because I was dying on the vine for time freedom. Plus, I grew up in Washington, D.C., which is a very conservative city. Most everyone does work for the government or has at the time had a very 9-to-5 mentality. And it wasn't a very spirited place to be an entrepreneur, although you did stick out. So, and you found your people quick. I do want to ask you something, though, that's interesting. So in the spirit of this, you know, ask the agent anything, because you and I know what this is, right? So if an agent is tuning in or knows what the Squad Up Summit is. So if an agent's tuning in and they don't really know what we're talking about, I want to just give a little bit of lay of the land. And then I want you to say a little bit more about it, because you were in the room, room, you know, so
I was everywhere, girl.
I know you were. I saw you at some dinners. I saw you posting. I was like, no. My
I
people.
was up until at least 3 a.m. every
Oh,
single
please.
night.
That's where
I
those
am too
things go.
old for that.
Oh, girl, come
My
on.
age starts with a 3. So, like, I'm not doing that again.
Get out of here.
Oh, but it was fun. Okay, so I was everywhere. Set the stage for us, Brittany.
So that's kind of par for the course of events like that, right? They're fun. I mean, I've been all too many events in Las Vegas where I'm a good girl, but you know what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. And when you go to these events, you're like, baby Jesus, like you cannot unsee certain things that I saw. So anyway, if you're an agent and you are listening to this, one of the crux of this Ask the Agent Anything is that Corey and I both work a lot with investors, if not invest ourselves. I was said a little bit in the beginning, right? So this was an event that was primarily marketed. I will say primarily, you can correct me, primarily marketed to, you know, wholesalers, and then Pace Morby's group of the sub two community. He has a lot more avatars, if you will. Are you a lender, you know, Gator lender? Are you a sub two person? You know, there's just all these avatars that he's created. In fact, he was the one that coined unicorn agent. And so if an agent says that's great, there's these two gals on camera, but what are they really talking about? What Corian and I would like to see happen is we want to meld the conversation between the agents and the investors. So if there is an agent out there that is thinking to themselves, yeah, I have investors that I work with, you know, I'm good, I don't really need any more information, fine, maybe that's them. But then there's going to be a handful of agents that say, what's going on over here? You know, the investors are the ones that seem to be with all the cash or hard money, but they have access basically to liquidity. Okay. They're not trying to get a loan from a bank and credit scores and all the things, right? They're willing to pay a premium for cash or just outright have the cash. And so the question being, how do I find more of those people? And how can I inculcate that into my business now so that A, I'm either going to pivot my business from traditional retail, or I'm going to, like I said, you know, bring it in. Because guys, I'm telling you that with these markets shift, you know, I was thrived in 2007, 8, 9, and 10. I really busted my ass in those years. It was a very difficult 4 years. But, you know, when markets shift, and I think all the agents throw their hands up in the air and go, and same thing with this NAR situation with the bar, you know, the buyer's commission at stake, that all the agents throw their hands up and go, oh my God, we don't like change. What do we do? So instead of being a part of the problem and gossiping about it, how are you going to be a part of the solution? And I assert, because I asserted this way back in 2007 when I looked around and said, oh my God, I'm only really selling to investors who are buying REOs and short sales. That's been my primary career. I still sell regular pretty houses, but my primary career has been investors. So, you know, I want people to be able to listen in between. How do I do this? How do I find this? And this isn't just an idea, because I prospect my fellow agent every day for business. That's my primary prospecting niche that I'm working. And many of them say to me, like, who are you? What are you doing? Wait, you're an agent, but you're doing this, you're doing that. They're trying to get their head around it. So, Corianne, is this something that somebody should have spent money to go to, or the next one that shows up next year or 6 months from now? Like, where does this actually fit in for the agent?
I'm glad you asked. And I have my own personal opinion, but then I have an
Yeah.
antidote that happened while we were there. And of course, my opinion goes along with of you should have been there. You want to be there next year. And the reason being is why wouldn't you want to make more money? Like, in a lot of ways, the more tools you have in your tool belt, the more opportunities you can give to sellers and buyers, the more closings you have. And so if you're out there being a contractor and all you do is paint and you've got a paintbrush, congratulations. Like, that's awesome. That's a business. And many agents just stay with the paintbrush the entire time. They're like, I can list your property. I can list your property. And that's all they have. They carry around the one brush, and they're like a non-player character with that. No disrespect. Many of you have amazing listings. Mwah. But I much rather hand you a screwdriver, a hammer. Oh my gosh, here's a sander. You also sand down the drywall before you paint it. You are bringing opportunity. You are bringing more to the table so that you can close more. It's a win-win-win. Win-win-win-win-win. Why wouldn't you want that? So that's part one. Part two is I come in late to Grant Cardone. whoops, I was up until 3 last night. I'm a little bit late. It's packed. I mean, the people that were standing in the back, we were talking like everyone was standing in the back because everyone was sitting. Like, I just honestly, it was like we got 600 more people in the room,
Wow.
and I don't understand why it was just extra packed. Grant Cardone. There is one spot up against the wall, and I am feeling exhausted and tired. And I'm like, I'm going to go sit my butt up against that wall. And I go over there and I'm like, is this taken to whoever was sitting there? And I take a seat and I listen to the thing. And then as it starts to end, which by the way was a lot of Grant Cardone flipping us off and the IRS. So anyway, there's your behind the scenes as to what that talk was about.
Why does that not surprise me?
It shouldn't.
He's a good old boy. He's allowed. He's from the South, right?
He was hyping us up. It was a lot of fun. Like some good energy coming from the stage. But I also knew that he was not the top speaker that I was personally going to gain from. So I allowed myself a little extra sleep. I just followed my intuition to go sit up against the wall. I listened to it. It closes down. I start to stand up and I look at who I had just asked if I could sit down next to them. And I recognized their face. And I went, are you Cody? And the guy goes, yeah, I'm Cody.
Oh, the guy?
And I went,
Cody Sanchez.
Yeah, it was a fellow. Oh, okay. It wasn't Cody Sanchez. I would have known it was Cody Sanchez. I would have been like, you're sitting on the ground, girl? No, she was out in the back. Different Cody.
Got it.
A great listing agent here in Colorado. Colorado is my market. I know it like the back of my hand. If you're good in this market, I've paid attention. This is a great listing agent. He handles things top notch, and normally they're beautiful, beautiful homes. So I'm like, what are you doing in this room? Basically, and I introduce myself and I kind of tell him, I'm like, I'm focused mostly on the creative strategies and investing for sellers. And I'm surprised to see you here because you're an amazing traditional listing agent. And he was like, I've started taking on novations for wholesalers who want to list. And I've realized how quick you all move and how much money you're all making. And I wanted to show up here and figure out what you knew that I didn't. And I said, well, don't figure it out too much. Let me be that resource instead.
Yeah, right.
Because in a lot of ways, I'm like, I would love to partner up with this guy. He is super smart. I can learn a lot from him. And we had an amazing chat. He introduced me to the person sitting next to him, which was another Denver agent. So I was sitting right in my pile of people, all unicorn agents, all wanting to bring value to the seller and deepen what that could be. And I was able to say, here's how I can add value. One, I live up in a completely different location. So there's some referral activity that can happen there. But two, it's going to take you some time to figure this stuff out because it can be a little complicated. The options and opportunities are vast. So let me be that resource as you need me. We shook hands and exchanged blink cards and moved on. But that's the reason an agent wants to be in there. This guy's a great listing agent. He's making good money. He wants to make more. And more importantly, he wants to give options and opportunity and freedom to the sellers he takes care of.
I call it being a solutionist, so it's become more of a catchphrase now and good, for good purpose, to be able to go in, we'll call it a listing agreement or a listing appointment, to a home that may or may not be on the brink, right? Like, maybe it's a grandma house, maybe it's a little dated and there's various and sundry. Is it a tear down? Is it just needs modernization? We're not going to get into the weeds about that, but let's say that it's not necessarily a totally move-in condition home. It could be anything from unlivable to livable, but it's not really, modernized. And you want to find out what does that seller need? What do they need? What is their timeline, price, motivation, and what's the condition of the property? And if it meets wherever it lands, right, on that spectrum, that's where you get to be a solutionist. So, as an agent, and particularly as a seasoned agent, how is that going to look? So you don't look like, you've got a money grab, right? Like let me just, sell this to an investor. And I don't know why agents think that they're going to steal equity. It's not stealing equity. It's the price that it needs to be for somebody to actually make a profit. And guess what? Holding costs, labor costs, cost of goods, it's expensive to do a flip. It's not basic arithmetic.
Mm,
So I'm just saying that as an
tell me about
aside.
it.
No one's out to like steal equity. I mean, are there bad apples? They're everywhere. You know, they're just like
Mhm.
they're bad apple agents, right? But in any event, you come in and you offer opportunities. It's like a concierge, it's like an a la carte. And I am actually shocked at the number of agents that haven't taken it upon themselves to become more educated, but it's not at the fault of anybody except their own. But I will say that the brokers don't have these conversations. So
Mm,
if you are an agent and you do have a propensity to step into this pool, you're probably going to be on your own. Do reach out to Corianne or myself. We're happy to have conversations offline with you about how you can get started in this in your market. And you know, there's events like this that are never going to be promoted in a real estate office. So you're, when I say out on your own, you kind of got to do the dig, you know, and we want to help you
yeah.
make sure you're in the right rooms, because there's a lot of money to be made in coaching across the board. There's more money to be
Hmm.
made in coaching than there is necessarily selling real estate, and people know that. And so they will sell you anything. They will sell you snake oil. So you want to make sure that you get in the right rooms.
Hmm.
Anyhow, I got off topic a little
Well,
bit, but you know, I just want to make sure that our people that are listening are really listening for something for themselves, not just, you know, that you were at an event or that I missed it and you know we're having that fireside chat, but that it's open to you, it's available to you. And here, Corianne, you were saying, oh my gosh, there's two, you know, Colorado agents that were sitting right next to me, because when you go into these events, you do set an intention and then you let it go, and you would be shocked at the amount of business and people that you run into when you're not attached to the outcome. And look at you. That was probably day two, right?
all yes, it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, like all the right energy when you're there to attract it. I know that you and I want to talk about Cody Sanchez because she was one of the most amazing speakers, but I'm going to save that till the end. I want to tell you
Oh, I have a
another
speaker crush on
antidote.
her.
I do too, and
Yeah.
we will talk about it.
Okay.
I just like I want to leave as much time as possible because
Yeah.
I really loved seeing her speak for the second time. And she's only
Hmm.
improving too. So like shout out Cody, like
Yeah.
I see you.
Amazing.
Before I jump into this story, which I'm really excited to share, I want to remind everybody that Renee and I have been in many of these different rooms. We've been in many of these different communities, and we met in one that we still pour our time and energy into. We've honestly vetted many of these communities out for you, and there's one that we love very much, and that's the Astro Flipping community. And if you want to be a part of that family, please let either one of us be
Mhm.
the steward into that family. We would absolutely love to bring you in, introduce you to the right rep, and make sure that you are taken care of and brought into the
Yeah.
family with big open arms. So you can DM either one of us to make
Yeah.
sure that that happens, whoever you're vibing with. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Now,
Thank you for saying that.
okay. This, I don't think many people, even if you were in the room for Squad Up Summit, was tracking this. So I want to bring it to people's attention. This whole event started with Don Miller talking about branding and storytelling and how there's one line really that you'll always see in every story. Like there's a pacing and then it's changed and manipulated just a little bit in almost everything. And that good salespeople are always looking at that line. So let me give you just the bullet points as to what it is.
Real quick,
It is,
qualify who this is. Is this guy like from
oh, yes.
Hollywood? Is he, who is this guy?
You asked. Thank you. He is a writer. He wrote many a book, but one of his more popular ones is The Brand Story by
Oh,
Don
I know that.
Miller.
Hmm.
I'll make sure I drop it in both of our YouTube chats and an actual link to this book, but it's called The Brand Story. And he's helped, I mean, really what he does is he jumps in with CEOs of all sorts of companies and helps them tweak their language so that they're actually speaking to their client and that they're actually resonating with their client, not just
Hmm.
selling to them.
That's interesting.
And
How is that
here's,
slightly different from the emotional intelligence? Although that might take us down another rabbit hole, but just in two
ooh,
sentences.
you can definitely circle it back, but here's the one point that I was like, ooh, everybody needs to be thinking about this, is that so many people try to make their business, their product, whatever it might be, that that is the hero of the story. But in fact, the buyer, the client is the hero, and you are the guide to help them solve the issue with your product, brand, whatever that might be.
Mm-hmm.
So he was pointing out and kind of flipping the script. And this is where the emotional intelligence is just like ringing through all of it, is what the hero wants is what you provide. You are the guide. So you
Mm-hmm.
must be connected to who your clientele is. You must understand what they need and what they want. And then from there, that's when you say, "Hey, I'm the guide you need to make this happen. Here's what life looks like with me. Here's what life looks like without me."
See, that's so good because I hear a lot of agents, so bring it back right to the agent. I
Mhm,
hear a lot of agents when they're asking me about this, or they get a little stiff armed, like, oh, I've got my investors, blah, blah, blah. Well, those investors, I assert this, I'm making generalities here, that those investors are like every other investor. Most investors are flippers. That's one exit strategy. Okay.
just
Most
one.
investors are flippers. What's another exit strategy? Small lot development, land development. I mean, it goes on. There's probably, endless
Co-living.
co-living. I mean, that's getting almost off to a branch, right? But if you're really just investor synonymous flipper, I bet if you ran out
Mhm,
on the street and did a poll, that's what people would think.
mhm,
Um, so I'm encouraging
absolutely.
the audience to listen more and ask more questions, because just because you have an investor that says they're an investor and they say, yeah, bring me the dirty house, are you taking the time to actually sit down and interview this person? And I'm not saying it has to be more than 10 or 15 minutes. But see, in my opinion, if you're not asking these questions, and then you cannot really become a solutionist, you're a reactionist, if that's a word. So if somebody says, hey, agent, go find me the dirty house, and you don't really qualify what that means. Number one,
Mm,
I think you're just running in a direction that you don't really even know you're running in. You're just trying to appease somebody. But then again, I say, how much more money are you leaving on the table? Because if you haven't qualified what they're looking for, how do you know? So let me give you a quick example. I
mhm,
just had a
mhm,
call
mhm,
that was a referral to me from our
mhm,
group from Astro Flipping, said, hey, you should call Renee in Southern California. And this guy's in Vegas. So this guy essentially gets on the phone with me and says, I'm a flipper. That's what he says. I'm a flipper. I have a house in Venice, California that we're flipping over by the beach, and that's what we're doing. And I'm looking for my new flip. That is the majority of the extent of the conversation I think most agents are having. If I didn't ask him, are you open to garage conversions? Are you open to ground up development? What's going on? Asking questions. And he goes, oh, yeah,
mhm,
I do X, Y, and Z. And I said exactly what you said. That's why you need to know me, because you
mm,
got to have confidence in this business. I don't say it like with an attitude, but I say that's cutting through all the other agents who aren't asking the questions. That's why you
mhm,
need to know me, because I get X, Y, and Z. And oh, by the way, I'm inviting you to text message me every day if you want to, a couple of times a week. This is my script, a couple of times a week, because I do a really great job in follow up. And you know as well as I do that we get so much opportunity in this business that sometimes things can fall through the cracks. So help me help you. You reach
yeah,
out to me and let me know. Because another famous last line is, send me what you got. I'm not doing that. I don't work for
yeah,
free anymore. I already half work for free as an agent anyway. But if you want my business, call
mm,
me. It works
mhm,
both ways. So I'm
yeah,
being emphatic here, not to have an attitude, but I really am saying, my fellow agent, come on, guys, step it up. Ask
mm,
questions, interview, decide if you even want to work with that person, and it'll set it aside. It'll set you apart. So, and they'll hear it, because
yeah,
investors want to tread all over agents. They don't have the highest regard for agents. So
mm,
bring your regard. You are valuable. You do earn that 2.5, 3%. And say it
mm.
with your chest, right? Don't
And
cower. Anyway,
don't say it when you're just holding a paintbrush. Go get the tools you need for how business is shifting and changing, and it's
yeah.
not always just listings anymore, and that's okay. There's so many other ways of solving problems, and that's what we're here to do, right? And actually, funny enough, while I was at the event, I was helping a buyer here. And this is just a small antidote, like little story, because we're still in the process of locking up their contract and all that fun stuff. But it was one of those moments where I could have pretended like I was the hero of the story. Oh, here's how I can help you. Here's
Mm,
why you work with me. Here's all the reasons, etc. I know you're stressed right now, but thank God you have me. Is how I could have approached it. And I think many agents do
mhm.
because they're trying to get across their value and they're trying to say it with their chest. But instead, I framed it as I client's name. I completely understand how you feel right now, your goals that you have right now, and that your highest value is providing and protecting your family and their bank account and their home.
Talk about
And the
emotional
person
intelligence. Yeah.
and he was kind of in tears over the phone and I was like, and
Mm,
and that's where you should be. And my job is to protect you in that and to make sure that you can do that. And that's one of the reasons I'm asking you to go and take these 2 steps to further protect yourself so we can move forward on this offer. He comes back to me the next day and he goes, I just want to say if we don't buy this property or it's another property, I have learned so much about real estate
mm.
and how to move just by watching you that I am so, so grateful you've been willing to be our buyer's agent. That's all I want. I'm like, if even if you have to walk away and this isn't the right move for you at this time to buy, you walk away a more confident, powerful person, knowing that your goals of providing and protecting your family are valuable
Mhm.
and that there's somebody out there that cares about it and is willing to bring all of
Yeah.
their expertise to make that happen. Hot damn, y'all, you are the guide. Just reframe it.
Yeah.
Just reframe.
That's all we've ever been,
Um,
because buyers and
yeah.
sellers are always gonna make their own decisions at the end of the day.
And that works for everybody. An investor is a problem solver. They're a guide to a particular situation. I mean, I could list this off forever,
We'll
but I've
come
got
back to it
more.
because I know I got off subject. So we're saying the same thing. I was a little more emphatic
Oh,
about
yeah.
it because that's our personalities. I love it. And just to be able to listen, to bring, go back and watch the other episode that we did on emotional intelligence and
Mhm.
really get yourself educated on that. This is a craft, guys. This is a craft. It's not just, fog a mirror and you got your license. If you really take this seriously, you want to hone that craft. I mean, yes, 18 and a half years later, I barely have made a dent, in my career. I know a lot of things. I'm not new at stuff, but I'm a life learner because people are always, that we're just complex. Human beings are complex. And so if you take that on and you want to be that solutionist or you want to be that guide, I almost think that that's the business. It's like the homes kind of sell themselves, right? If
Right.
that's it.
If you package them correctly.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so the reason I brought up Don Miller in this particular method and what he's teaching in regards to storytelling and sales is because it links in to the next day when Pace was on stage.
Mm,
Because I'm taking notes, like I care about branding and marketing and how I can be better in my language and all of that kind of stuff. Like best note taking was done on Don Miller for sure. And then Pace gets up there, and if anybody's new to the conference world, you gotta know there's gonna be an upsell. That's how they make money. Like they gotta get up there, they're gonna sell the next step beyond that event, and they're going to encourage you to take that step that direction. If you're not ready for that, sometimes it can feel super salesy or kind of throw you off, and you're like, "Whoa, I wasn't expecting to have that much money here." And I saw that with a lot of people that were newer
mm.
to those conferences. And let me just tell you, if that was you, I resonate with you. I understand how that felt, and all you got to do is shake it off and go, "That wasn't for me." And I knew going into the presentation, I was like, "Upsells are not for me right now." I mean, it was a really cool opportunity too, but I'm not coming home with anything in my pocket to my husband to have to explain, was pretty much where I was at. I was like, I
Right.
know this is not the right choice for me to purchase, no matter how cool it was. So I
Yeah.
was like, what can I take for this? I'm going to take some notes. And Pace even said that right at the beginning. He was like, this is not going to be for everybody, just so you know.
Mm.
But if it's not for you, I highly suggest you just watch this anyway. And I was like, oh, damn, what's he going to do? Like some cartwheels or something? Let's see.
Right. Okay.
He followed Don Miller's point by point by point. He followed it so perfectly. I
Hmm.
was on my ass. Like just excuse my language, guys. You'll find that here. We're real. We ask our
First like
agent
that.
anything, but so he was like, "You guys are the heroes. You are amazing in the investment space. You can succeed even beyond this. And I understand that you want," and he literally listed it. I have the screenshot of like, I don't know, it had to have been somewhere between 25 and 35 items
Wow.
of things that you find yourself needing in your business, like
Hmm.
TCs and connections to this and all sorts of things. And he lists it all out. And then he goes, "And I will give you all of this and be your guide." And he crosses it off, crosses it off, crosses it off. And
Hmm.
you watch that actively happen, where he then positions himself as the guide that's going to help you get those things. And then he was like, "And if you have this, think about how much easier everything is going to be. And
Mhm.
if you don't have this, now every single one of that line, you've got to go find individually." And if nothing else, if I
Hmm.
just watched Don Miller and that, I was like, masterclass. Masterclass in sales. We watched the king do it himself. And I was a little bit in awe. And I wanted to tell you that. I wanted to be like, not
Hmm.
only did he share the secret sauce on day one, he went and he performed it on day two.
That says a lot for us. I think we get to bring, the ask the agent anything. Well, you and I are going to talk off camera, obviously.
Yeah.
But our intent is to bring a lot of value, and that just gave me some ideas. I'm going to sort of keep them to myself, otherwise we're going to go down a rabbit hole. But it gave me some ideas, and it's interesting because I've heard Pace talk about that book before, infrequently, but I've heard him talk about it before. And I think that book gave him the framework when he tells his story, when he schlepped all the way up to like northern Utah or whatever, 4 hours away to do a deal and, do it old school, shake the old guy, this older gentleman that he was buying the house sub two from, and, shake the guy's hand and put the face with the name and all that. And then he was driving back like 4 hours and he just had these downloads and epiphanies. And I think it's something like a 24-point, master plan. And he's only on point 4 or 5 and he's gone this far with it. And I say that because I believe that book gave him more of the framework of the how-tos. So he really did take it to heart. It's cool that you saw it
And
in live.
it's cool that he showed us the secret sauce. Like in Don Miller going first, he was honest in the introduction and the, thank you for that presentation. He was like, "I've studied this guy's book, like not read it, studied it." And I was like, okay, Pace
Yeah,
cares about this.
that's what I'm saying.
But then when I
Exactly. Yeah.
saw him do it, I was like, "Oh no, you studied this." Like,
Yeah.
holy moly. I mean, just masterclass. Loved it.
That's
So
amazing.
interesting. And if our viewers weren't there, what can you walk away from this
Mhm.
with? What's your homework? It's to understand and look at whether or not you are demanding that you're the hero in your business or whether you're willing to be the guide that helps your client be a hero.
Mm.
Just go journal.
That's like a mic drop, that's just and discuss, right? Get quiet and then discuss.
Yeah.
It's very interesting. Sales inherently is a competitive business, and it's mostly based off of, if it's especially based off of a commission based business, right? It's like, where's
Mm,
mine? Ain't nobody going to take my lunch, right?
mm,
And there's something inherent about that. It feels very it feels very animalistic in a way, right? If you look at out in the Sahara and there's, one gazelle and all the lions are jumping on it and you see how they act. I mean, that's not us per se as human beings, but it's not too far fetched sometimes. People will do really unscrupulous things to make a dollar. And that is nowhere near the word guide. That is
mm,
a grab. That is
mm.
something in somebody's makeup that they feel there's a lack, there's not enough, or worse, that they just have to be king of the hill. It's not collaborative. So having that, I'll nod to Pace, having read the book and then applying that just inherently saying I'm a guide and you're the star of the show, just that is collaborative versus we're never taught that really in sales. I mean, sales
Mm,
training is kind of still sorely lacking. I think you're on your own. There's a lot of
mm,
sales training out there, but you're still on your own, and it's not like going to school. Nobody's going to make you sit there and do it. You can just wing it.
yeah.
You can wing it on your personality, your whole career. And to me, that's kind of exhausting. So my takeaway in you sharing that is that's a guidepost. Like how that, see, I
Mm.
just learned something. Oh, 18 years later. I don't, like I always say, I don't really know. What do I
That's
know?
why I would share notes. That's why we do
Exactly.
this.
So yeah, I love that.
I just a quick jump off of what you said, and then we got to do Cody Sanchez because we only have so much time, and she's
Girl,
fierce. Like we got
Cody. We
so much
might
shit
go
to
over
talk about.
guys a little bit, but yeah, go ahead.
Just a little
Go
bit
ahead.
today. Um, the okay, when you say that, when you're like you checking in on yourself as to whether or not you demand to be the hero, I hear, okay, your ego is something that you
Mhm.
can't let go of. And I just want to bring this is a quote from John Galan, and he says this in all of his coaching calls in the Astro community. Um, Ego is edging God out.
Mhm.
And I just loved that. That was the first time I heard it was from
Oh,
him, and I
was
was
it?
like,
Oh, okay. It's been
I was
out
like,
there
that's
for a minute.
really interesting.
Yeah.
Well, he can claim it for me. That's
All
fine.
right, fair enough.
But in general, I love that. And in a lot of ways, if you're edging out God, whatever word you guys want to use, like this is not specifically nailing you into that, but the energy that is, and Renee and I will talk about energy all day in the
Yeah.
universe and all that fun stuff. But the energy that is out there, if you're going to edge out that intuition, you'll miss sitting up against the wall and finding one of your favorite listing agents. You'll miss
Mm.
somebody tugging on your elbow and finding out that they're actually the coach you need. Like those kinds of things happen when you're willing to let go of your ego and let God, right? Cheesy quote.
It's
Moving on.
true. Or fear, false evidence appearing real. There's all these acronyms. And I also say that can be construed from the head up. You can still intellectualize that. Like we're talking about it right now. I don't know if we're intellectualizing, but we're definitely talking about it. And those quiet moments, with yourself, be it if you're journaling, if you're meditative, whatever speaks to you, even just sitting outside, sitting in nature, maybe sit on the ground, like literally ground yourself. And then
My fave.
really practice being in your heart. And I know that also sounds a little bit woo-woo, but if you're thinking about it, it's a very different experience with inside of your body when you actually drop into your heart and then start to operate from that place. Myself included, it takes a beat. You're kind of like heady, problem solving. Yeah. See, we did that the other day, right? So
Yeah,
this
we
is a maneuver.
did.
You can put your hand on your heart and on your head. This is a neurological, it's a safety thing. When you put your hand on your head, this is the crown of your head. This is the last part that fuses as an infant. So there's a lot of nerve endings. There's a lot of energy coming out here. Plus, if you believe in chakras, that's the white
Where
light,
the
if you will.
the aura comes out of,
The aura
basically.
comes
Yeah.
out of all that, right? So it's up here. So
Mhm.
it's grounding that for a moment. And then you put your hand on your heart. So it's not so much putting your hand on your head because you're thinking, but it's because it's to calm it down, calm down all the thoughts, and then put this here. And if you do that and do 3 breaths in your nose, 3 breaths out of your mouth, you'll be surprised. It'll shift it up
It's
immediately.
one of the fastest for me. You taught me that. And
Yeah.
I love all sorts of meditation, grounding. I mean, I'll basically lay in the dirt out here in the middle of
I
nowhere.
know you have so
But
much dirt around you that doesn't have dog pee and poo in it like me.
I know, this is nice. But that's one of the quickest ways. That's the way to do it in your office quite
Yeah,
quickly. Close your eyes, touch those 2 points, few breaths. Oh, right. We get to experience this life. It's a gift.
it
It's
is.
not a curse to be here. Okay. Goes
Cody.
Cody. Um, First off, just she's so fierce.
Ugh. Woo, girl, got a crush from the stage. Is
Yeah,
she a
no joke.
Capricorn? You and I are Capricorns. Is she a
I
Capricorn?
bet you
I'm gonna find that out.
she gives Capricorn energy. I would believe it. Well, the first time I heard her speak, it was really about buying businesses
Yeah.
and Main Street over Wall Street. That's one of
Mhm.
the things that she talks about quite often. Um, and it was a more technical speech last time I heard her speak. This time was more integrated to I would say some of the psychology behind it and some of the things you need to even get close to moving that direction. And this it's just literally one tidbit that it all swirled around and it
Mm.
broke my brain.
Woo,
And that
let's
was,
go.
it was that there is something special in every single one of us that we have already based off of our experiences that we can bring to business now. And if instead of trying to be the oh so great business people or the oh so great in control of that one thing, but rather so aware of the value we bring in
Mm.
our superpower that we came to the table asking for that value and that worth immediately, we would own, be a part of, and support more businesses by allowing that to shine through.
What do you think yours is?
Ooh, I've done actually a lot of thinking about this, and I don't know the right words to put it, but I'll just give it to you guys raw because you're here on Ask an
I
Agent
asked.
Anything.
Yeah.
Um, I believe my superpower is being able to identify, pull out, and make an action plan for other people's superpowers. It takes me like 5-10 minutes with somebody to be like, "Ooh, you're missing this. Like, you are not seeing in yourself right now that that is one of the coolest freaking things. Let me help you pull it out. Let's lay it on the table. Let's filter it through real estate because I'm a real estate nerd. And then let's game plan it so that you have an action step so you can move towards the thing that actually lights you up instead of move towards what you assume you should be doing."
Ooh, that's good.
I believe
I
that
like
that
that.
somewhere in there is my superpower, is really identifying other people's. Um, But how does like, there's so many other angles where I feel like that can actually apply in different businesses. And she
Mhm.
was like, "If you're great at marketing, why aren't you approaching a business that doesn't have great marketing and saying, 'Hey, if I can bring you an additional 300,000 in revenue this year, can I have 10% of your equity?'"
Mhm. She's brilliant at that. I love that. I love her messaging with that. Um, yeah, she's good.
Let me see if I had any other notes. Because honestly, she was click, 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 click through her slides. So my phone was like,
Yeah.
normally I'm a pretty fierce writer. But I think that was worth its weight in gold, is that the expertise that you have needs to be leveraged. And if you can find what you're good at and tell that story, the expertise equity that you bring is all you need.
Ooh, that is true. Because you're leaning on it. It's an inherent, right? You're not
Yeah.
trying to be inauthentic around something that maybe isn't your highest and best. You know,
Yeah.
we can always bring in, we can always kind of add to and bring in. But I'm hearing that as, where's your foundation? What's your
Mhm.
rock? What is your foundation? That's so brilliant. I love that she even said that from the stage, because that gives it's it's more participatory, right? She's giving more information, I'm sure, with the slides and things like that. Even you just sharing it as a second go round, it's gotten me thinking, what I mean, there's a million other things I could be good at.
Mm.
What I am great at is being a matchmaker. I'm very good at bringing group A and group B and putting them together. And when I look out over the horizon of other things that I've done in my life and in my careers, that has always been that. And I'll tell you that what solidified it for me is, I genuinely, you've got to hear this from me from a place of genuinely, with no attachment, want the money but don't need the money. Like, I'm saying this from my heart, that
Mm.
I get such a thrill when I bring people together and they get to create, because not I, right, but the proverbial I was the one that was able to, more importantly, bring my gift and listen,
Mhm.
right? Like, ooh, this person does this, there, that. This one does this, there, that. Like, these two need to know each other. And where it shone most in another time in my life is, I used to own a record store, and we did a huge festival every year. We called it the Indie Rock Flea Market, and it was huge for the time. This is pre social media. I can't even imagine. We would have been like Lollapalooza if social media was around. It was all word of mouth. And there, at the time, there were quite notable and famous bands at the time that were there. And then we also had people selling things. And there was a couple of moments where I could take a breath when I wasn't doing 10 things at once. And I looked out over the horizon and I really saw people interacting with one another. Remember, again, this is pre-social media. So the only time you were going to ever see anybody was when you saw them live. Like if you saw a band or you went to an in-store or any of these things. And there were actual record store, or excuse me, not record store, record label owners that people had kind of, crushes on, or they wanted to go talk to, and like, how do you do your DIY and how do you do all this? And they genuinely were in front of that person. Like there was going to be no other time that they could be in front of that person. And the fact that that was available because it was something that I helped put together, that was my takeaway. I don't even care about the bands that played. If I ran down the list, you'd know. But, the bands that played were the pull. But the people, like you're saying, in the storyline to pull this together, they were the hero. And they got to walk away from events like that because they met the people that I'm sure to this day, that was 20 years ago. I'm sure to this day, there's stuff that has happened from those events because those relationships were built. How does that correlate to real estate? When I got into real estate and I got my license, I never said to myself, I'm doing this for the money. The money will already be there. I needed my heart to be filled. And when I really got quiet and I said, what is it that I'm good at? What is it that I want to experience from doing this? I'm really great at putting group A and group B together. It's buyers and sellers together.
Yeah.
And so I genuinely am listening. I'm genuinely thrilled when somebody actually gets what they want, And so I don't know if that's my one superpower, but I think it's just genuinely being out there with people and listening for what's important to them, and then categorizing it in my brain and saying, who else do I know in my Rolodex that this could benefit? Yeah. And the money just comes. It's not a tit for tat. It's not like, oh, well, you owe me a consulting fee because I introduced the two of you. Maybe I should. I don't know. Maybe that's a business model somewhere, but whatever. The point is that, they're thrilled and they remember and all the things, and if it doesn't come back to me monetarily, it comes back in another way. And when I'm on my deathbed, that's all that's going to matter anyway, really,
Well, and it gets you jazzed up. And I've got like kind of two little, I'm just full of stories today, guys. Thanks for
I
coming
love
along.
it. We'll go over a little bit.
I'm trying to build in more stories into my life. Well, they had a panel, and one of the gals really stood out to me. Shout out, Julia. You were incredible. I'm so glad you got up on stage. I know you had some nerves. You fought them off, and it's because we needed to hear your story. And what she did is she was a wholesaler. She was working in the California market, actually, and she was doing really well and very successful in regards to having deals happen. But she wasn't happy doing it. It wasn't vibing with her. She learned the sub 2 model and the business buying model that has kind of been the birth child of Cody Sanchez and Pace Morby together. And she went and she bought a spa for $0 down. She now pockets $500,000 from this particular spa every month because she loves it. And she uses the same knowledge and the same things that you would pull from the real estate entrepreneurial world. She's brought her expertise about how to make a spa and an experience beautiful and enjoyable. She's packaged that up into something that she loves. And now she gets to do that every day, still coming from the angle of investing, wholesaling, and that kind of thing first. But she got to drop those bags and go, that's not my superpower, but I'm going to use those skills to build into my superpower. And I was out here like,
yeah, that's awesome. I think you got to start somewhere, and so the pitch is really wholesaling because it's quick cash. It can be, right? Quick cash and all the things. But then you really get in and you go, what's going to make my heart sing? And that's really, I think, the human experience. What is going to make your heart sing? And look at all the equities, so.
And you can put that into your wholesaling. You can put that into your investing, like whatever your superpower is. And I know you well enough, Renee, to know that your superpower is connecting and bringing people together and creating experiences where multiple people can be in the room and vibe well, 100%. But for our viewer who's out here going, I have a lot of superpowers. Guess what? Me too. Guess what? Me too. How do we narrow that down? I want to give you the visual. This one struck me in the middle of the night, and it's out. I need to put it out there because it's for somebody. Is basically we all have so much light in us that we could show up like a ball of sun. And most of us do. Like, we are a sun, we're a big gassy ball of all of these things that we would like to accomplish and do. And you'll see over the course of our stories us jet out with those solar flares, right? For me, it's that $80,000 land flip, that, oh, I got my NLP certification, or my first listing sold really quickly and above list price. I have moments of those solar flares where I've stretched out of what my big bally gas, and I've accomplished something, and I've been pulled back in. And I think that comes from a place of, there's a lot of different directions we can all grow and be, and we want all of those things. And we're afraid if we choose one of them, then we won't get all the other ones. And those are also on our heart and in our mind. And oh my gosh, all of these things. Shift the perspective to, if you are willing enough to choose just one of those things for now and be powerful enough in that one thing, you change that big ball of gas and light into a beam. And that beam is so powerful and so long, all of a sudden you're a spotlight. And you can point that spotlight wherever you want once it's in that power position. It becomes, instead of this thing that keeps getting pulled back into energy, it becomes something you can go, I got my bat signal now. Look, I love this. Ooh, I love this. Oh, I love this. And you use that ray of light after you've channeled it. And I think people are so afraid to channel it that they'll lose other parts of their heart in their life. And I encourage you to think, what is the one thread between all of these things that makes my heart sing? And how can I turn that into a light beam that later I can use to shine on all the other areas that my heart sings for?
Oh, Corianne, I have one more thing to contribute on that. That's so beautiful. And I've noticed something, and I'm not an older person, but I have been on the planet a little bit longer these days. I can't believe I'm that girl. And what I've noticed is that there's this inherent fear of missing out. There's too many options. That's part of what social media has provided, right? When I grew up, there was channel 4, 5, 7, and 9 and public PBS. That was it.
Yeah.
I think 1980, it was when cable came around. And even then it wasn't as many channels as there are now, or all the other attention grabbing things. So I encourage the audience also, while you're getting quiet, to try some things, especially when you're young, like in your 20s, like really try some things and see, oh, I don't like this. I don't like that. Like, fall down, bumble, figure it out. And regardless of whatever your upbringing is, that this is your life and that you get the opportunity. You're the one on the stage of your own life, right? You are the guide and you are the, the everything, right? And so you get to write this story, and it sounds way easier said than done. But also just find it in your heart to where that thread is and just lean into it. Give it a chance, give it 6 months, maybe give it a year. There's nowhere to go, guys. We don't know our expiration date. And as far as I'm concerned, life is pretty long. God willing, you live to be 80, 100 years. That's a long time. You're not missing out on anything. Just go for it. But what I would encourage people to do is to stick with something for a while and see if that resonates with you, so that you can make a powerful choice to say, this is not for me, or this is for me, or I've done it kind of long enough to say, you know what, I like this and I'm going to leave the rest. I mean, if you just outright don't like something, like your, intuition's like, no, of course, don't, do something you hate. But everything else in between, I've noticed that with especially like a lot of younger people, they're just so busy doing this and doing that. And then they do a whole lot of nothing, and they wake up in a year and they go, well, why did this doesn't work? No, it all works. You're just not giving it an opportunity. So where do you start with that opportunity is what I heard you saying, Corianne, which is go inside. The answers are within you. Stop looking at consuming so much content. Do it as a secondary thing, not as they have all the answers, because that's somebody else's life. They're just sharing it with you. So get quiet and then get some wherewithal and some foundation, and then look around and say, oh, look at Pace and look at Jamil, and I think I'll take this and I think I'll take that, and look at Cody over here. Oh, now I want to buy businesses, but you haven't even really started the one that you're in. That would be my 2 cents and the observation that I see, and watch out, because people's lives on social media are not always what their lives are. And I say this with so much love and reverence. I know a handful of people and I know their actual story behind the scenes, and they're trying to create a brand and they're kind of trying to do their thing, but they're not there. They're not. So watch out, and you follow your own heart and you do your own thing.
Absolutely. We've said a lot here
Oh my
today,
God,
and
we
guys,
went all the way
thank
to the
you
moon and
for
back. Yeah.
we did, and thank you guys for showing up for this. I mean, really, this was like me bringing my notes to the table on some of the things that stood out to me for Squad Up Summit. And the beauty is, whether you were there or you weren't, what's important is that spirit of collaboration you
Mm,
continue to bring into your life and into your business, because you will not get as far alone as you can get with the people that even show up here, that are in the chat right now. And
yeah.
so, one, please continue to show up. We'd love to see you every Tuesday at 2 Mountain Central Time, Standard Time. Central would be at 3 p.m. Guys, do the math. You're smart if you're here. But it's going to stay consistent on Tuesdays. We have this conversation and we want you guys here. We want to hear your opinions, your thoughts, and most importantly, your questions, because you're going to get it for real from me and Renee.
Yes.
And
Thank you guys.
if you want another deeper level of that, I just want to remind you that we come from the astro flipping community. And in that community, we're going to be on a call actually later tonight where
Yeah.
we're going to go even more in depth, and you have a connection to so many people. It really does feel like family, and you're more than welcome to join the family. So just hit us up if that's
Yeah.
something that's of interest to you. And in the meantime, Ask an Agent Anything will always be here for you on Tuesdays.
Love everybody. Thank you for your time and your attention, everyone. And there's just more to come. This is starting out as a passion project for Corianne and I, but we know it's going to gain traction and there'll be value for people along the way. So we're open to any, feedback, constructive criticism, however it lands on you, to make it better and to just make sure that, you get value from this. So thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Follow us on Instagram, and we'll see
Be
you
well.
guys soon. Bye.